Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. I got back from vacation. Can you guess where I went? No. Back here and really excited because we actually get to do something fun this week. We actually get to have some community events, starting with our fireworks show. So I thought, what better way to kick that off to bring Truro Township Fire Chief Jeff Sharps in today. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and take those off so you can at least moderately take me seriously. So there's a huge process with this. We didn't have to do it last year because of COVID, and this was my first kind of experience going with it. But the amount of detail and effort to kind of make sure that it's safe, that it's contained and controlled is kind of a big thing. So for you specifically, why don't you talk about the process? What are the things that you're looking for when it comes to like a citywide fireworks show?
So the permitting process is important, and our fire prevention lieutenant, our fire investigator, Lieutenant Schmidt, works with the pyrotechnic company that's going to be the exhibitor for this fireworks show and has been for the last several years. He works with that crew, getting the names and members of the team that's going to be putting on the show, doing the background checks and those types of things, and then making sure the permitting process is followed per Ohio law. The day of the fireworks, the important thing is to have the safe areas where we put up the orange fence and we keep the crowds at a safe distance away from the actual where they actually light the fireworks off and the ground effects and those types of things. So making sure we all have those distances correct is an really important part of the process.
Now, at the end of the fireworks show, especially at Civic Park, traffic tends to be unique, and not everybody moves right away. Can you tell everybody who's watching, like, why is it that at the last thing, or there's always somebody that gets in a car right before the finale that they want to beat the traffic, which they can't. What exactly is going on at that time when the fireworks are over and everybody's ready to go home and because they're happy they celebrated the 4th of July? Why can't they just get in their car and just drive?
Well, from our perspective, the fire department, the one thing that we do is we move our engine and our medic vehicle. We move it outside of the park, and they're stationed outside, right there on Wigwam, I believe is the road there, in case there's a calls for service or anything outside of the park. But we let the foot traffic evacuate as well, because we don't want people walking on sidewalks and streets and cars moving at the same time. So we just try to keep that in orderly fashion. And then we also want to make sure that the fireworks that were intended to launch at the time, we want to make sure all those have been launched. Sometimes those can be delayed, and if people are driving and fireworks start going off, it may catch their attention. So we just try to calm everything down, get everything situated, get lights turned back on, and then we can just try to move everybody in an orderly, safe manner.
Now, I know we've talked before about Civic Park improvements, and one of the things that we're looking to do in the next couple of years is bring a different bridge aspect to it, whether it goes off Rosedale or something along those lines. And we brought you into those meetings, and we kind of oriented everything so the fireworks could be there. Would that make life easier, just having that secondary entrance, just for traffic control and safety purposes, just to have another way in and out of the park for firefighters, for safety personnel, things like that?
Yeah, I think anytime you can have second means of ingress or egress from a safety resources perspective, if something does happen in the park and we need to bring more resources in, I think that would definitely enhance and make things a little more efficient. We do have some secondary means of ingress and egress right now, but they're not the most optimal, with driving over some grass and some gravel and those types of things.
Okay. I know a couple of times the comments that we get about fireworks, it's especially now, social media, a lot of it is fireworks that go off, say, tonight at 11 o'clock. It's one thing if it's going off on, Friday, Saturday night. It's 3rd, 4th of July. We kind of get those types of things, but the rest of the time, what are some of the dangers that you typically see in your career that you've seen when it comes to fireworks, whether it's damage to, people, places, things like that?
Yeah, The only legal fireworks right now in the state of Ohio, and there's legislation that's going through as we speak to maybe change that, but as of right now, it's just the novelty fireworks. Those are the snappers, the smoke bombs, the sparklers, and the snakes, I believe. And the one thing I would say about the novelty fireworks, just because they're legal doesn't mean they're safe. The sparklers tend to generate more injuries per year than most other fireworks, just because they burn so hot. People like to give them to children and those types of things. Those sparklers burn over 1,200 degrees, and so the fabric of clothing and those types of things could catch fire while handling these sparklers. If you give it to kids and they don't fully understand, or you haven't educated them on the sparklers, and they touch someone else, or it falls on the ground and they go to grab it and they grab the wrong end, they could really, really hurt themselves.
And I can't imagine anybody doing that on purpose, say, to their older brother.
Right. I think there has been a couple of those over the years that we've seen. Yeah. So even the legal fireworks can create a safety concern from our perspective. At 11 o'clock at night, let's face it, sometimes people that may be celebrating and consuming and doing those things, and maybe their decision making and might be a little skewed. So sometimes we run into some of those problems while they're just not being safe when they're firing these fireworks off, and they're illegal as well. So
well, I know that they're supposed to sign a waiver saying they won't use that in a state that it's not allowed, and it's just shocking that year after year that never actually comes into play. I know we've had the legislation that you mentioned talked about opening it up and multiple holidays. I think the number is around actually 11 sanctioned holidays where fireworks can go off. But getting rid of those restrictions on the commercial grade or the bigger grade style of fireworks that comes up. Got a couple of community members that are very concerned about it. One, because of their pets. Fireworks go off and their pets they can't handle it. They don't like it. The other one that's an issue is actually veterans. The idea of PTSD and some of the issues that come along with that. And while there's no real current way to enforce any of that, I would like to ask everybody to at least be respectful of your neighbors and your community when it comes to when you do set off those fireworks, that you keep in mind that there are other people around, just because it can be not only dangerous but also can scare your pets and cause some trauma to those that are suffering from PTSD. Any questions so far from?
Not yet.
All right. Well, you're getting good, so I'm just waiting to see what happens. Any generic safety tips for fireworks for people using them, other than just being careful? Anything else you want to share with everybody?
Well, I think that some just general guidelines. If you are going to use the legal fireworks, that if you're in your backyard or around your home, you have a garden hose out there with you. Have a bucket of water. If you are using sparklers. And the sparkler goes out, you can throw it in the bucket of water, because certainly it's still hot and can burn people. And the biggest safety tip is don't use illegal fireworks. I think that's the safest position to have right now.
Yeah. My assistant Jessica is a big fan of the New York Giants, and there was a former player there that, if you recall, a few years ago was playing with fireworks and lost 3 fingers, I think, on his hand. So that obviously got to be careful with those types of things. Well, I appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about the fireworks. So we've got them this Friday night at Civic Park. I know that we've actually gotten a couple calls today if they were still going on. Knock on wood, the weather looks pretty nice. I think it's a high of 78 with hopefully a nice slight breeze to kind of maybe get some of the fireworks smoke out of the way as they're going off. So we've got that. But the gates open at 6:30. It's going to be a little bit more limited than in the past, just to kind of keep an eye on how many cars are in there and things like that. So make sure you go ahead and get there early, as well as I think the band is going to go on at 7:30. And there may be some music in there in between, but some activities. But we've got a lot of food trucks coming that'll be there as well. So if you want to grab a bite to eat, we are going to have music this time around as well, which is going to be nice. So they'll be kind of accompanying the fireworks. I was disappointed to learn that I don't actually get to push the button to launch the fireworks. I thought that was like a mayoral privilege, but I guess that's not going to happen. Oh well, maybe some other time.
Yeah.
So
They're kind of sensitive to that.
I know, but it's the perks of the thing. So
Right.
I did have something I wanted to pass along to you. We're getting ready for the Tomato Festival, and that's just in just a few weeks. And Chief Baker wanted me to pass along a badge to you because he wanted to make you feel like the winner that you are as we get ready for Guns and Hoses. I think it's a kickball tournament for this one. So he wanted to make sure that you got that badge.
Junior officer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, well, you're not there yet, according
Right,
for him.
right.
So I wanted to pass that along because I think that there's a lot of conversation at RPD about how they're ready to kind of go in and claim the crown this year. So
Sure.
I just
I'm sure they were ready last time as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened last time?
I can't recall exactly that. Yeah, I'm not sure how that went for RPD the last time around.
Not well.
Not well. Okay.
No.
So that'll be something that hopefully, if everybody's out there watching, can come and see the firefighters and the police and see who comes out on top this year. But wanted to
We
pass
look
that
forward
on.
to that. If I may mention too, at the fireworks, we are going to set up a vaccine
that's right,
clinic
yeah.
from 6 to 9.
Okay.
Our EMS coordinator, Lieutenant Perry, will be out there. So if anyone's interested in receiving the vaccine, they can look for the fire apparatus. We'll be in that area, and they can get their vaccine before the fireworks.
Yeah, it'd be a good thing. It's always good. I know that COVID is still here. I think they're talking a lot about the variant. What is it? Variant D, I think, is what I've heard as far as the one that's kind of moving around now. So always good to try and keep that. I mean, to be honest, it's nicer when you don't have the mask. You have the vaccination, but you still want to be careful, and especially for those that aren't vaccinated out there, to go ahead and get that taken care of. Thanks for reminding me about that. So we do have a couple of other city events coming up. Farmers Market tomorrow from 4 to 7 at JFK. And we also have music in the cul-de-sac. And I believe Witt's Frozen Custard Truck will be at the Music on the Cul-de-sac this time. It's going to be off of Canada Court. So hopefully you guys, anybody who's out there, can make it. We also have our Community Commission meeting tonight. Tonight on topic, we have our Welcome and Diversity Committee as well as our Military Recognition Committee. We had an opportunity to have a great Memorial Day ceremony at Memorial Plaza about a month ago, and so now we're going to be talking a little bit about what we're doing for Veterans Day and some other plans for that particular park. We also have our Tomato Festival volunteer meeting next week. It's the last one before the actual Tomato Festival, so that's next Tuesday here at City Hall at 7 p.m. So if anybody out there would like to go ahead and help and volunteer, whether there maybe some of your students are looking for some credit hours, service hours, things like that, or you just want to be part of the show and have some fun, it's going to be a great thing. So you can come out onto the meeting there. You can also check out the website at I think it's tomatofestival.org. Is it .org or .com? Yeah, the tomatofestival.com. And there's a spot up there that you can go ahead and sign up for volunteering. They are filling up now that we're getting a little bit closer and people are excited about it. We have the Land Sharks on that Thursday night. We've got Striver on Friday night. And then on Saturday night, we have Arrested Development. So it's going to be a great thing. And I think starting next week, we're going to try and announce who some of the undercard acts that are going to be opening as well. So we'll be bringing that out to everybody. We also have the Chamber of Commerce is going to have a business after hours event on July 8th from 5:30 to 7:30 at their location off Bryce Road. So if you would like to go ahead and meet and mingle with some of the members of the local business community, it's always a good thing to get out there and meet them, network, kind of find ways to work together, because obviously, small business is what our community is built on, and that's what predominantly makes up a lot of our Chamber of Commerce members. So hope to see everybody out there. We do have, speaking of the chief, we do have our first Citizens Police Academy that is going to be coming up. The first one went through with the Civilian Review Board, and so now we're going to be opening it up to the public. It's going to be around 20 to 25 students that will have the opportunity to take place in an 8-week course that'll tell you everything you can about how to be a police officer, with some written instruction on rules and procedures, but then also some of the other stuff where you can get to go out and actually track speeders, go on a ride along, things like that. Talk with a canine unit, and all those things. So it is open to all residents of Reynoldsburg. The application process, I think, will be going live probably at maybe the first week of August or so. Maybe have some information at National Night Out on August 3rd. So for those of you that are interested in the Citizens Police Academy, it's a great opportunity. I know some of the comments that we heard from our Civilian Review Board when they went through it is that they had good conversations, questions that everybody wants to ask a police officer. They actually had the opportunity to do, and why is that this way versus that way, things like that. And it was a really good give and take conversation all the way around. So that's something that helped. We're kind of bring the community together.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
It is on the website right now.
It
They
is on
are
the website,
accepting
okay.
applications as of right now,
All
so
right.
you can go online to do that as well.
All right, that's what I get for being on vacation. So we do have a couple of things that I want to kind of go over. On Monday, we had kind of our city council meeting, and a couple of big things that came up. We're going to be applying for the Wagner Road Ohio Public Works grant that will help actually fund a majority of all the improvements on Wagner Road, including bike paths, sidewalks, lighting, gutters, things, all of that type of stuff. I also announced that we have committed, Franklin County Engineers Office have committed $1.7 million, or basically 10% of the project cost to us. And I'm actually going to be asking Truro Township trustees tomorrow for a little bit of cash to put into their share of it so we can get this taken care of for the grant purposes. But a majority of it's going to be financed through the development opportunities that have come along in Reynoldsburg, specifically the MI development as well as the Wagner Road townhomes. Without getting into the details of taxes, because I know that doesn't make for good webcasting, it's called tax increment finance. So basically, we're going to take the property taxes for infrastructure improvements that are going to be generated from this MI development and the Wagner Road townhomes, and that is actually going to pay for a majority of the actual project construction cost. MI, actually, they've given their first level of pavement to their road, and they've got the gutters and everything in there, so they're going to have their grand opening here in a couple of weeks as well and start construction on their first model home. And it's moved fast enough that they have already expanded into their phase 2, which is actually good news in terms of making sure that everything is funded. The big goal with Wagner Road is to make sure, obviously, the safety considerations are there, but the reality is we wanted to make sure we didn't have to come to the taxpayers for additional funds. So kudos to Director of Development Andrew Boucher and City Attorney Chris Shook, that we all worked together to figure out the best way to kind of find out how to get this paid for without having to go to the taxpayers for additional funds. So the grant process, we're very confident. We have some more things in our favor this time than in the past, and I think all those things together will help us get that set for construction in 2023. So we've got that going. We also have our first thing for Main Street improvements for traffic light syncing. Like I mentioned on Monday night, apparently there is sometimes traffic on Main Street. So we worked with our engineers to start off with how do we make it a little bit easier to get from, say Taylor Road and Wagner Road all the way down to, to get to 270. So it'll be a radio controlled sync system that will sync all of our traffic lights at the same time. So that way when people are leaving or coming into Reynoldsburg, it'll be a lot more flow. We will make some modifications for some of the higher intersections. So your Lancaster, Wagner Road, things like that. But we're going to get that done. But the cool thing that's actually good with you being here is what eventually will probably be called Opticom, which allows EMS and first responders to actually basically flick a button in your emergency vehicles and all the lights will automatically turn green. Now, aside from the fact that that means you can speed through with your sirens, what are the benefits of this kind of a system to a city?
Well, and just so we're clear, we don't just flip them on and off, and
that's what I want to do.
We sometimes would like to, but those are actually activated when the light bars or the emergency lighting system on the vehicles are engaged. Then it would send a radio signal to the stoplight to change that light to green. It creates a much more safe environment for really the community, number one, and then number two, the responders and the vehicles. We actually, our truck was involved in an accident 2 years ago, responding to a fire. And I truly believe that if we had this system, the Opticon system that we're talking about, that accident wouldn't have occurred because we were proceeding cautiously through an intersection against the red light. Mm-hmm. It was a busy intersection. A car didn't see our warning systems and broadsided our fire engine. So that system would allow for the green light towards the engine and a red light towards the cross traffic. So, like I said, it creates a very safe environment for our vehicles to respond, especially in high traffic volume times.
Yeah, it was interesting when I started looking at that. I know it's been talked about for quite some time, but I know that some of the neighboring communities have this as well, and so I'm looking forward to getting this through in support of council, which is great. A couple other things that we're doing, we're actually going to be putting up some fencing around, there's a cemetery on Wagner Road that's right by the VFW. I'm sure you've probably seen it. There's apparently, it's a fun place to go sledding in the wintertime, and I just want to make sure that it's safe and secure, respecting the history of Reynoldsburg and some of the people that are buried there that still have community members that live here. One of our community residents, Mary Stutes, was kind enough to give me an update on the situation there, and so we were able to get that done. So I know we're going to work to have some fencing put up there as well as the last one is a really exciting one that the official legislation will be in hopefully in June, late July. Small business grants for new and existing grants. So let's say you're a small business that has been either impacted by COVID or even not impacted by COVID, but you want to make some improvements to your business. Structural improvements, maybe you want to buy or expand and put patio seating in or something like that. We're going to use some of our America Recovers Act money to actually help provide some of those options for our small businesses that are already existing, as well as our new businesses that are coming in, including businesses that are minority, women, and veteran owned. So that legislation will be up as well, but again, anything that we can do to continue the Reynoldsburg's great track record on job development is actually a good thing. So you'll see that in the not too distant future. We do have some news about the roads programs. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody in Reynoldsburg for their patience, especially if you've ever traveled on Main Street or Priestley or Virginia or any of the other roads that have actually been worked on. The good news is the suburban residential roads are pretty much done. I know I drove by Priestley this morning, and Priestley looks like it is pretty much completely done from the Taylor roadside to the county line. As bad as it sounds to say this, it's a really beautiful road. I never thought I'd ever say that ever in my life, but when you have all the curbs and gutters and everything all kind of redone and fresh pavement all the way around, it looks really good. So thank you for your patience in the community about that. We do have some news on Main Street. If you weren't watching the council meeting on Monday, we did learn that Franklin County paving of Main Street is going to start July 27th, and that's their starting date that they're estimating. Weather could change it. Maybe their particular mood that day could change it. We don't know. But July 27th will be the day that will go on. And for this section of Main Street, from the Franklin County line, basically, by just in between Carlisle and Hanson, all the way down to the city limits at the far end towards when you get towards like Burlington Coat Factory. All of that paving will be done, but it will be done at night. So it shouldn't make as much of an impact of some of the area that we've been talking about, in between Lancaster and Jackson. So that's the good news. The bad news is our Lancaster, basically construction from Davidson to Jackson will probably start in about 3 to 4 weeks. A little bit before that paving thing. So this is where we're expanding the sidewalks onto Main Street. There's going to be 4 lanes on Main Street, 2 in each direction. We're not going down to 2 lanes. It's going to be 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, just to make sure, because there's been some confusion out there. But what we're going to do is we're going to be expanding the sidewalks on both sides to kind of narrow it down, put in some great streetscapes, some trees, areas for businesses to actually do, say, sidewalk sales or expand their patios and things of that nature. So that work is going to start towards the end of the month as well as the repaving and some of the other pipe work out there. So kind of keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got for you. We are in the early stages of planning for Canada Court, Cuthbert, Broadwin, and Taylor Road Southwest for next year, and there are others on the list. So the process kind of starts like this. Again, really exciting things talking about roads. But we had a meeting with our engineer, and we listed what we feel are the most needed road repairs in the city. The most traveled, the least well kept all the way throughout the city. And we have a list of X amount of roads. And so we'll be bringing to council probably sometime in September legislation to do the engineering to make sure that everything fits the way it needs to, so we can get a cost estimate of everything. Council will approve it, and then in January we'll put those things out to bid. And then probably, like I said, around April, May of next year, that's when that road construction will commence. So there's going to be a lot of residential roads next year because we have the only major road work that's going to be done is the other half of Main Street to Wagner, from Jackson to Wagner Road. So that one will be done, but everything else will be taken care of. It's going to be a lot more residential roads to kind of put up there. The city is actually spending, when you put in some of the grant money and some of the other ways that we can fund it, the gas tax money, permissive taxes and things like that, we're almost spending $8 million on our roads this year, which is significantly more than has ever been spent before. So we are dedicated to making sure we try and fix as many of them as possible. I did honestly get one person to give me a hug on for getting their road done on Priestley, which is nice. You don't need to do that, everybody out there. I was happy to do it, but she was very, very happy that that road had been done. So, all right. So now we've got some other fun news. I shared with the chief earlier because he gets the heads up. We have a business announcement that's coming, so I'm going to go ahead and be obnoxious and give you a grand reveal. For the first thing in actual parts of Reynoldsburg, we are getting a Sheetz. So hopefully everybody will be very excited about the opportunity to get a Sheetz. It is going to be located on Broad Street, and it's going to be right in front of the Lowe's on Broad Street, kind of like next to where the Aldi's is. There's that big open field there. So Sheetz will be on our Bcba commission in July, and then following that up from there, and they want to move fast. So we've known this is coming for a while. I wanted to say something, but for those of you that have been expecting a Sheetz actually in Reynoldsburg, not just in the zip code, we do have that one coming up. So that is some of the new things that are coming up. And there's some other things as well, but hopefully everybody's excited about that. All right, before I start with community comments from some of the comments on development, do we have any questions or comments or anything so far?
No.
All right. So while I was on vacation, I saw that there was a couple of posts that residents were asking questions, a lot of questions about development. Some about what's going on with the Happy Dragon, some that was going on with the old Kroger and things like that. So I went through and I'm just going to kind of answer them. I asked to have as many emails. If you had questions, to email them in. We didn't get as many as I'd expected, but I did want to kind of go through some things. The reality is, for me, people are talking about, the Happy Dragon. Is it going to be a 3-story dollar store, tire store, and check cashing? No, it's not. While I may have made a joke at one point in time about something like that, no. We've talked. Reynoldsburg has a good amount of dollar stores, tire stores, and check cashing places. So what we don't want is more of that. We want to be able to diversify our economy. So when we're looking at who's going to come into that particular location, we are looking for some other things with that. Some of them are going to be more exciting than others. I know that not everybody gets excited about, say, a dental office or any medical offices, but the reality is those are jobs. Those are people's jobs, and they're good paying jobs, and that's what we're really attracting, in addition to the other stuff that is more fun. I am firmly dedicated, and I'm going to do everything I can to get an ice cream shop at that particular location. We had a meeting about it yesterday. We're getting ready to close on the property. I would love to see an ice cream shop there in addition to some other things. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have some big news on that one. Now, just to be clear, the property that's there, the Happy Dragon, Jack's son, he's retiring. This wasn't anything other than he was looking to sell the property and he was looking to retire. And so that's why the city was engaged in conversations with it. It's right in Old Town. It is an area that has got great visibility. It has a lot of potential for economic growth. And so it was the best of both worlds, where he was looking to retire and move on to better things. And we wish Jack nothing but the best. I think today's the last day for those of you that want to get some of the potato salad and egg. And now half of my staff just walked out of the office to go get something. But again, this is going to be something that ultimately will be mutually beneficial to all of us. The city will profit off of it with the new jobs that we're going to be bringing in. It is not going to be a parking lot. We do understand that there's parking concerns in that area. However, this is not going to be a parking lot. Some of the stuff that we've gamed out actually will add additional parking spaces. But the footprint of everything is going to be about a 10,000 square foot building, probably 2 stories. That's what we're looking at right now. So to kind of give you an idea, but there will be additional parking with it, but it's not going to be just a parking lot. We have Memorial Plaza. We have now some additional spaces there, and we're working with some other areas as well to increase our parking. And I understand that some people will throw the comment about, that this retirement was funded by the taxpayers type of thing. And if you want to split hairs to an extent, yes, but I think the reality is what we're doing is making an investment in the city of Reynoldsburg to bring in some of those best jobs that we need to do with that. And at that point in time, in reality, anything that the government does, anything that we do when it comes to finances is funding somebody else's retirement at some point in time. And we are not looking at a 50 cent on the dollar return on this one. The comments that were made when we were doing this, I don't know about you. Do you guys, when you sit and you game things out, do you always go with, like, when you're training, like the absolute worst case scenario? Do you ever have, like, this is the worst possible situation that we could come into in a fire situation, and so you plan for whatever that is.
Sure.
Okay, so that's kind of what we did with the finance representatives, is we said, all right, what's our worst case scenario? What would the actual worst thing to be, and then how could we move on from that? So that's where the kind of that 50% comment came for. It certainly is not going to be anything that we're going to be looking at, but again, it's always better to be prepared. What's that? Expect the worst, prepare for the worst, expect the best, or something along those lines. So the other one was a question about Trivium. Trivium is a development company that is actually very diversified. I would take a look at their portfolio. They've opened up a VA hospital, I believe, in Grove City. There's the West Star example that's in off Cleveland as you're headed towards County Line Road up till Polaris. If you want to take a look at what they've done there to kind of give you an idea. They have purchased some other properties in the community. If you remember, they were the former rehab facility buildings that are currently temporarily leased out to what is called Lifehouse for some drug rehabilitation programs. Those are not the long-term goals of the developer or the city, but those are just things that are there in existence. Now, the fun thing that I did find interesting is this is not the first time the city has ever purchased property for purposes of economic redevelopment. The biggest example would obviously be the YMCA. Specifically in the Ohio Health component that's in there. The other one is actually Eastside Brewery, which was done. The city did purchase that, and for very limited gain initially sold that property to what would eventually become as Eastside Brewery, which they've got their food truck coming in tomorrow night, so make sure you get out there after you get your cream puff at Schmidt's at the farmer's market and everything there, then go ahead and walk over to Eastside Brewery. So this is not the first time that the city has ever done something like this, and the reality is I can't remember what was there originally. I think it was almost being used as a storage facility at some point in time.
Way back it was a banquet hall.
Yeah, and a banquet hall. So I think if you've ever had the chance to go to Eastside Brewery, it is significantly more a significant improvement to what it used to be. So it's one of those things. So one of the comments was, is this communist? Not so much. It's not communist. I get where the idea comes from of everything. The comment was that I had made is, you want to control what goes in there. And the reality is, even before I became mayor, we've all heard the jokes about people talking about, we don't need another tire store, dollar store, mattress store, all of that other stuff. And that seemed to be for a long time all that Reynoldsburg was bringing in. And the reality is that if we had not purchased the PNC Bank and if we had not purchased the Happy Dragon, we weren't going to see a lot of change. We were going to get a continuation of, the Happy Dragon. He was probably going to lease it out to a family member, and it was going to be very much similar. And the PNC was actually being looked at by another credit union, which credit unions are fine, and we have no issues with that. But the reality is we wanted to find something that would be a little bit more of a job creator for both of those particular locations. So that's why we went with that one. And it is not, the PNC side is also not going to be a Mattress Smart, a 3-story Mattress Smart at that. That's not what's in the plan there. So I know there's been a couple of questions about Andrew Bauscher, our Director of Development. To be honest with you, Andrew and I work closely pretty much every day. And so whatever's coming out from development purposes has got my authorization and full support. So basically, when he brings something to me that fits within the needs of some of the other things that we'll cover later in the day, we try and make the best out of the situation. But development is something that needs to happen in Reynoldsburg, because the reality is, without continuously finding ways to improve your city, the city will be stagnant, and that's what we used to be like, and that's not what we want to be anymore. I understand that there are concerns specifically about the residential development, which I'll get into in a little bit. But again, the reality is we're pushing to bring some different types of housing into the city, as well as those businesses. And those businesses are coming. Believe it or not, we actually opened up over 35 businesses last year, and we're probably up in the 20s right now as far as new businesses this year. Got my ice cream shop comment. I want an ice cream shop too. It could be Jenny's, could be Grater's, could be something else, but I want an ice cream shop so that way I can pretend that I'm working the ice cream off if I walk from the office to go get ice cream and back. I did appreciate the comment about being a wonderful mayor. I don't know exactly if I think that that's always the case, but I do think that I'm working hard at becoming a better mayor all of the time. So I appreciate the support there. And we do have some news on the Alliance development. They are obviously working very hard on that Bryce Road corridor. Just to refresh everybody's memory, it's going to be a world headquarters. It is not going to be a specific church, so they're going to have a smaller portion of that entire area, and the rest of it is going to be opened up for private development, which will add to the property tax base as well as the income tax base. So the city is going to, as bad as it sounds, the city is going to make money off of the property from property taxes that will go to the school district and the income taxes from the jobs in the area. Couple of comments that had come in about what about a water park or a skate park or a bowling alley or skating rink and things like that. We've asked a lot of different people. I had the luxury of being a bowling coach for my high school team that I used to teach at for 12 years, so I got to know a lot of the bowling proprietors. And a lot of the comments came to the same thing, that some of them were doing well financially, others were making just enough to get by, and this was before COVID. And so it's hard for them to open up those types of larger establishments in any area, especially considering there are some that are relatively close to Reynoldsburg. That's why you're not going to see a movie theater in Reynoldsburg, because the Pickerington cinemas can cover that particular area. And there are a couple of bowling alleys around. What I could see happening, and that we would love to see happen, especially in the Bryce Road area off where the Alliance is coming in and some other areas, is those smaller versions of things. I think pins, for instance, where you have kind of like a 3-lane, 4-lane type of version of something that also has other entertainment for kids of various ages. We have had conversations with them, but a lot of it depends on the economics of the situation. Does the area make sense? Do they feel that it's going to be able to support that type of clientele? All of those different things come into it, but it's not something that we're not trying to do. We are actively trying to recruit a number of those things. Now imagine how difficult it would be just under normal circumstances. Now throw COVID on top of it, and you can't touch anything. Everything was locked down, and all of those different issues. So a lot of those businesses that you're talking about had been severely impacted by COVID, and not all of them have recovered to the point where they're ready to expand or move on. However, if somebody's watching and wants to build any of those particular items in Reynoldsburg, give us a call. We'll find a place for you. Absolutely work to find something for you. There was one comment about healthy restaurants. I don't know about you, but I typically don't go to restaurants to eat healthy. It's usually my excuse to not do that. But we do have a number of restaurants that have been opened up in the last little bit, including some vegetarian restaurants, some different Bhutanese and Nepali restaurants. We also have one of the best vegetarian restaurants in the Black Lake Plaza and the Loving Hut over off Livingston. So we do have those options. It just sometimes maybe they don't always seem like the first place that you want to go to. They're not the chain restaurants that you see in a lot of places. Believe it or not, a lot of our best restaurants in Reynoldsburg are those kind of like mom and pop type things, people that are owned locally. I mean, you look at Pro's Tempeh Taco, Vic's, the Loving Hut, like I mentioned, Sagram, I mean, the Himalayan Culture Center, all of those things are great restaurants that are there, so I encourage you to try those. The other questions came up about the old Kroger location. Absolutely, you're right. The old Kroger location is the next thing on my the big priority list to try and find something there. We had reached out to Mark's grocery store a few years ago, and they were not interested in that particular location. We have reached out to them again, and maybe something will come of that in that particular area. But the interesting thing about that location is the amount of work that would need to be done in that particular area. So it's owned by a private business, and while we can try and suggest clients and clientele and people to come into that particular location, depends on, can they afford the rent? Can they afford the upkeep for the building? Does it make it economically viable for them to do improvements all the way throughout? But we are talking with them. I think one of the things that I would like to see in that area in general is a pharmacy of some sort. If a grocery store type went in there specifically for the residents in the area that used to go to Kroger to get prescriptions and things like that. I know when I was out and I'm walking around the community, they've mentioned that to me. So we are trying. One really cool idea that's out there, and absolutely we're looking at a couple of different possibilities for it, is an indoor market environment, kind of like a North Market, or they've got something out at the kind of a food thing in Dublin now by Bridge Park. We're looking at that, and we're trying to find out where the best location is. Is it in Old Town? Would it be at the old Kroger location? Would it be at the PNC site? There's a lot of potentials for where something like that would be. I know that that's something that we'd like to work towards. I know Jennifer would like to have something that would be kind of connected to a farmer's market environment. As she said, something similar to what the Canal Market District has out in Newark. So I know those are all sorts of different things to talk about. I know one conversation has always been about a Cameron Mitchell restaurant. And yeah, we are going to make that push when we get the Alliance area a little bit more developed and we can kind of show them what's there. The idea with a Cameron Mitchell style restaurant is, a little bit more upscale dining, things of that nature. In the past, when we've reached out to them, they've said, economically, your community just doesn't work for that. And maybe ultimately it never will. But the idea is that we want to at least provide that attempt to get a Cameron Mitchell-esque restaurant into Reynoldsburg, just to provide different dining options for everybody. So those are kind of the active things. Dave & Buster's, I know, has had issues in the past. They have two locations in Central Ohio. I think one up at Polaris and one out in Hilliard. I don't know if they would be interested in expanding that market share as far as that goes, but it's obviously worth something. So we actually had Director of Development, Andrew Boucher, actually did reach out to see if that's something that they would be a possible interest in. I know BW3's moved from that area, so a lot of people talked about, hey, what about getting a Roosters back there? We'd love to see. We actually had conversations with Roosters at another location prior to COVID, and then COVID hit, and everything's kind of slowed down again on that restaurant front. Ohio Health is still a possibility, just because of the fact that, obviously healthcare is an issue, and believe it or not, Reynoldsburg and the east side is actually underserved when it comes to healthcare. So that is something that we're still looking at, but it depends on whether or not Ohio Health wants to have in that location. If not, we'll find something else. I can uncategorically say that Sirens will not be a location that will be coming to the old Kroger. I know that that one was there along with a different version of a name for it. So no, we will not be getting a gentleman's club at the old Kroger. Again, job creation is one thing, but that's not exactly what we were going for. So just wanted to share those things with you. The email questions that I did get, and I'm going to go through these fast because I know I'm talking about a lot of things development-wise. What is the city's role before a development proposal is submitted, and does the city recruit new businesses? We talked about that. Yeah, we do recruit businesses specifically. Residential is not something that we have to recruit. Usually they call us based on a number of different things. But we do try and recruit specific businesses to come into the community so that way we can bring them in. Qualifications for serving on the Planning Commission or Bcba. Well, first you have to be a resident of Reynoldsburg. You have to be nominated by the mayor and ultimately approved by council. For me, there's a couple of things in there that I like to add to it. I believe that the Bcba and Planning Commission should be as fair and even politically as possible. In a world where a lot of people live and breathe with Democrat or Republican, I don't feel that it is right to have BCBA leaning completely one side or the other. I think a good mix of individuals are there. So there are Republicans, Independents, and Democrats on all of those committees, and those are things that I look for. In addition to the fact that by charter and by my own personal preference, I want people who know what they're talking about on there. I understand that there's concerns that maybe residents aren't getting their say completely in it, but at the same time, some of our members of the BZBA and planning have prevented unwanted development coming in because they know what the code is all about. They know that it doesn't meet the requirements, or maybe it's improvements from some kind of like aesthetic appeal. Maybe instead of having a blank side or a vinyl wall of something that's nothing's there, making requirements where you actually put windows in and treatments and things like that is a good thing. Why does the city seem like to approve all sorts of development proposals? City council used to say no frequently. What's changed, and what are the criteria for denying an application? And should the city have the ability to say no if they want to? What is council's role in the zoning code? This will be the last question because there's like 18 questions on this one, but I want to spare everybody the time. But I did want to answer that one. While it does kind of seem that all development is approved, it's actually not the case. As a matter of fact, the one that was recently rejected by the BCBA was an apartment complex across from Glen Rest Cemetery. But a lot of reasons what you're seeing is that because of a new zoning code. The new zoning code was developed over two different administrations with two different political backgrounds over the last 18 months that was developed, and is still being altered as we speak to make sure that it meets the needs of the community. There were multiple public meetings. There were a number of debates about the subject, things like that. And a lot of it, the code was actually modernized. We reduced the number of zones because the idea is that if you live in a suburban residential area, there's no reason to have 15 various degrees of what a suburban residential is. So it was kind of combined into it. So if you're a business development or a residential development and you come in and say, I want to build whatever here, you can look at the zoning map and you automatically know whether or not it's going to go there or not. Most development, when they come in and they see our zoning map, if that's not what they know, that getting a variance is not going to happen, because that becomes the same old process that it was under the previous code, is that if they want to change the zoning, say they want to change it from single family to multifamily, they would have to get it changed through the council, and that's probably not going to happen because council believes that single family goes in this area, industrial or light manufacturing goes in this area, and so on and so forth. So that in itself kind of eliminates the developers for doing it. Old Kroger and Glen Rest are an example. The Kroger would be, people have always talked about, I heard there's going to be. Well, first of all, if you heard that there's going to be something there, it had to have come from this show or council, because otherwise you're not getting the right story. So just throwing that out there for you. But the story is, are apartments going in at the old Kroger? No, they're not. It's not zoned for it. They would have to get it changed, which means that it's going to have to go before council, and council has expressed completely that is not the intent of that area. That's not what you want to see there. Glen Rest is the perfect example. We had apartment buildings without the commercial component. There was no commercial component submitted at the time, and it was shot down. That's the way the zoning plan is supposed to work. It is exactly the way it was supposed to work. So those are a couple of things as well. Council has done the same thing as far as changing zoning before. If you watch the meeting on Monday night, you saw that there's a couple of zoning changes to the area to allow one area that's split. Half of the lot is split for residential. The other part was commercial. So they're actually getting rid of the commercial component and making it all residential. So that's an idea of a zoning change that has to go before council, and that's exactly what's going before council. So I have a lot of those questions. So every week I'm going to kind of go through a couple of more just to let everybody know of everything. But now I'll kind of turn it over. See, do we have any questions on anything?
We don't. I think you've answered them all.
All right. I think everybody was really curious of whether or not a sign range was going to go into Reynoldsburg. So it's a good thing that we cleared that up. Our next fireside chat is actually going to be July 7th, and we're going to probably talk about how wonderful the fireworks and the parade were. And then the other thing is we're going to have our very own 2019 and, by default, 2020 Tomato Festival Queen, Bcba, will be joining us. So if you're interested in joining the pageant process, I know there's a few people out there that might be interested, or maybe you have children that would like to be Tomato King, Tomato Queen, Tomato Prince, Tomato Princess. There's still opportunities. So Bcba is going to come in and talk about all of that. She's going to talk about probably a little bit about where she's going to school next year and kind of like what being Tomato Princess or Tomato Queen meant to everyone outside of getting to wear the really cool crown that maybe other people in the office have also worn on occasion. So if there aren't any other questions, all right. So everybody, again, Chief Sharps, thank you so much. I know you had to listen to a lot of stuff about development and all of that, but it's just kind of good to get it cut off. I appreciate everything. I look forward to seeing you on Friday night when it's nice out, and if nobody's looking, I may try and start the fireworks anyway. So I appreciate you for coming in. I know, I can try. Everybody stay safe, respectful, and make sure you put your shopping carts away. We'll see you.